Hey friends, here we are back again for a little bit more of the fantastic Mr. Fox. Chapter 13, Bunce's Giant Storehouse. "My dear Foxy," cried Badger, "what in the world happened to your tail?" "Don't talk about it, please," said Mr. Fox. "It's a painful subject." They were digging a new tunnel. They dug in silence. Badger was a great digger, and the tunnel moved forward at a terrific pace, now that he was leading the paw. Soon they were crouching underneath yet another wooden floor. Mr. Fox grinned slyly, showing sharp white teeth. "If I'm not mistaken, my dear Badger," he said, "we are now underneath the farm which belongs to the nasty little pot-bellied dwarf Bunce. We are, in fact, underneath the most interesting part of the farm." "Ducks and geese?" cried the three small foxes, licking their lips. "Juicy, tender ducks and big, fat geese?" "Exactly," said Mr. Fox. "But how in the world can you know where we are?" asked Badger. Mr. Fox grinned, showing even more white teeth. "Look," he said, "I know my way around these farms blindfolded. For me, it's just as easy below ground as it is above it." He reached up high and pushed up one of the floorboards and then another. He poked his head through the gap. "Yes!" he shouted and jumped up into the room. "I've done it again! I've hit it smack on the nose, right in the bullseye. Come and look!" Ooh. Quickly, Badger and the three small foxes scrambled up after him. They stopped and stared. They stood and gaped. They were so overwhelmed that they could not speak, for what they now saw was all kinds of a fox's dream, a badger's dream, a paradise for any hungry animal. "This, my dear old Badger," proclaimed Mr. Fox, "is Bunce's mighty storehouse. All his finest stuff is stored here before he sends it off to the market." Against all four walls of the great room, stacked in cupboards and piled upon shelves reaching from floor to ceiling, were thousands and thousands of the finest and fattest ducks and geese, plucked and ready for roasting. And above them, dangling from the rafters, there must have been at least 100 smoked hams and 50 sides of bacon. "Just feast your eyes on that!" cried Mr. Fox, dancing up and down. "What do you think? Pretty good grub, eh?" Suddenly, as though springs had been released from their legs, the three hungry small foxes and the ravenously hungry Badger sprang forward and grabbed the luscious food. "Stop!" ordered Mr. Fox. "This is my party, so I shall do the choosing." The others fell back, licking their chops. Mr. Fox began prowling around the storehouse, examining the glorious display with an expert eye. A thread of saliva slid down one side of his jaw and hung suspended in the air and then snapped. "We mustn't overdo it," he said. "We mustn't give away the game. We mustn't let them know what we've been up to. We must be neat and tidy and only take a few of the choosiest morsels. So to start, we shall have 4 plump young ducks." He took them from the shelf. "Oh, how lovely and fat they are! No wonder Bunce gets a special price for them at the market. All right, Badger, lend me a hand to get them down. You children, help as well. There you go. Goodness me, look at how your mouths are watering. And now, I think we better have a few geese. 3 will be quite enough. We'll take the biggest. Oh my, you've never seen finer geese than these in a king's kitchen. Gently does it, that's the way. Ooh, and what about a nice couple of smoked hams? Ooh, I adore smoked ham. Don't you, Badger? Fetch me that step ladder, will you please?" Mr. Fox climbed up the ladder and handed down 3 magnificent hams. "And do you like bacon, Badger?" "I'm mad about bacon, said Badger, dancing around with excitement. Let's have a side of bacon. That one, that big one up there. And carrots, Dad, said the smallest of the three foxes. We must take some of those carrots. Oh, don't be a twerp, said Mr. Fox. You know we don't eat anything like that. Oh, Dad, no, not for us. It's for the rabbits. Remember, they only eat vegetables. Oh, goodness me, you are right. What a thoughtful little fellow you are. Yes, take 10 bunches of carrots. Soon all this lovely loot was lying in a neat pile upon the floor. The three small foxes crouched close, their noses twitching, their eyes shining like stars. And now, said Mr. Fox, we shall have to borrow from our friend Bunce 2 of those helpful push carts over there in the corner. He and Badger fetched the push carts, and the ducks and the geese and the hams and the bacon were loaded onto them. Quickly, they pushed the carts, and then they were lowered through the hole in the floor. The animals slid down after them. Back in the tunnel, Mr. Fox began pulling the floorboards very carefully back into place so that no one could see what they have done or that they had been moved. My darlings, he pointed to the 2 of the 3 small foxes, take a cart each and run back as fast as you can to your mother. Give her my love and tell them we're having guests for dinner. The badgers, the moles, the rabbits, and the weasels. Tell her it must be a truly great feast, and tell her the rest of us will be home as soon as we're done with one more little job. Yes, Dad, right away, Dad, they answered, and they grabbed the trolleys and went off rushing down the tunnel. Chapter 14. Badger has doubts. Just one more visit, cried Mr. Fox. And I'll bet I know where that will be, said one of the small foxes, the only one now left. He was the smallest of them all. Where? Cried Badger. Well, said the smallest fox, we've been to Bogus's, we've been to Bunce, but we haven't been to Beans. It must be Bean. You are right, said Mr. Fox, but what you don't know is which part of Bean's place we are about to visit. Which? They both said together. Aha, said Mr. Fox. You will wait and see. We're digging as they talk. The tunnel was going forward fast. Suddenly Badger said, Doesn't this worry you just the teensy bit, Foxy? Worry me, said Mr. Fox. Why? All this, stealing. Mr. Fox stopped digging and stared at Badger as though he had gone completely dotty. My dear old furry frump, he said, do you know anyone in the whole world who wouldn't swipe a few chickens if his children were starving to death? There was a short silence while Badger thought deeply about this. You are far too respectable, said Mr. Fox. There's nothing wrong with being respectable, said Badger. Look, said Mr. Fox, Bogus, Bunce, and Bean are out to kill us. I hope you realize that. Oh, I do, Foxy, I do indeed, Badger said gently. But we're not going to stoop to their level. We don't want to kill them. I sure should hope not, said Badger. We wouldn't dream of it, said Mr. Fox. We shall simply take a little food here and there to keep us and our families alive, right? Oh, I suppose we'll have to, said Badger. If they want to be horrible, let them, said Mr. Fox. We down here are decent, peace-loving people. Badger laid his head on one side and smiled at Mr. Fox. Oh, Foxy, I do love you. Thank you, said Mr. Fox. And now let's get on with the digging. 5 minutes later, Badger's front paw hit against something flat and hard. on earth is this?" he asked. "It looks like a solid stone wall." He and Mr. Fox scraped away the soil. It was a wall, but it was built of bricks, not stone. The wall was right in front of them, blocking their way. "Now, who in this world would build a wall underneath the ground?" asked Badger. "Very simple," said Mr. Fox. "It's the wall of an underground room, and if I'm not mistaken, it is exactly what we are looking for." Bean's secret cider cellar. Ooh. Mr. Fox examined the wall carefully. He saw that the cement between the bricks were old and crumbly, so he loosened a brick without much trouble and pulled it away. Suddenly, out from the hole where the brick had been, popped a small, sharp face with whiskers. "Go away!" it snapped. "You can't come in here. It's private." "Good Lord!" said Badger. "It's rats!" "You saucy beast!" said Mr. Fox. "I should have guessed we'd find you down here." "Go away!" shrieked the rat. "Go on, beat it. This is my private patch." "Oh, shut up!" said Mr. Fox. "I will not shut up!" screeched Rat. "This is my place. I got here first." Mr. Fox gave a brilliant smile, flashing his white teeth. "My dear Rat," he said softly, "I am a hungry fellow, and if you don't hop out of here quickly, I shall eat you up in one gulp." That did it. Rat popped out fast, out of sight. Mr. Fox laughed and pulled more bricks out of the wall. Then he made a biggish hole, and he crept through it. Badger and the smallest fox followed him. They found themselves in a vast, damp, gloomy cellar. "This is it!" cried Mr. Fox. "What is this? The place is empty," said Badger. "Where are the turkeys?" asked the smallest fox, starting to look gloom. "I thought Bean was a turkey man." "He is the turkey man," said Mr. Fox, "but we're not here for turkeys. We have plenty of food." "Then what do we need, Dad?" "Take a look around," said Mr. Fox. "Do you see anything that interests you?" Badger and the smallest fox peered into the half-darkness. As their eyes became accustomed to the gloom, they began to see what looked like a whole lot of big glass jars standing upon shelves all around the walls. When they looked closer, they were jars. There were hundreds of them, and upon each one of them was written the word cider. The smallest fox leaped high in the air. "Oh, Dad!" he cried out. "Look what we found! It's cider!" "Exactly," said Mr. Fox. "Tremendous," said Badger. "Bean's secret cider cellar," said Mr. Fox. "But go carefully, my dears. Do not make a noise. This cellar is directly underneath the farmhouse itself." "Cider," cried Badger, "is especially good for badgers. We take it as medicine. 1 large glass 3 times a day with meals and another at bedtime." "It will make the feast into a banquet," said Mr. Fox. While they were talking, the smallest fox had sneaked a jar off the shelf and had taken a gulp. "Whoa! Wow!" he gasped. "Wow!" You must understand, this was not the ordinary weak fizzy cider one buys in a store. It was the real stuff, home-brewed fiery liquor that burned in your throat and boiled in your stomach. "Ah," gasped the smallest fox. "This is some cider." "That's quite enough," said Mr. Fox, grabbing the jar and putting his own lips to it. He took a tremendous gulp. "Oh, this is marvelous," he whispered, fighting to breathe. "Fabulous. It's beautiful." "It's my turn," said Badger, taking the jar and tilting his head way back. The cider gurgled and bubbled down his throat. It's like melted gold," he said. "Oh, Foxy, it's like drinking sunbeams and rainbows." "You're poaching!" shrieked the rat. "Put that down at once. There'll be none left for me." Rat was perched on the highest shelf in the cellar, peering out from behind a huge jar. There was a small rubber tube inserted in the neck of a jar, and Rat was using this tube to suck out the cider. "Oh, you're crazy," said Mr. Fox. "Mind your own business," said the rat. "And if you great clumsy brutes come messing around, we'll all get caught in here. So get out and leave me alone to sip my cider in peace." And at that moment, they did hear a woman's voice calling out in the house above them. "Hurry up and get that cider, Mabel," the voice cried. "You know Mr. Bean doesn't like being kept waiting, especially when he's been out all night in a tent." The animals froze. They stayed absolutely still, their ears perked and their bodies tense. Then they heard the sound of the door being opened. The door was at the top of a flight of stone steps leading down from the house into the cellar. And now someone was starting to come down those steps. Stop here for today.